The fans of Red Dead Online are all waiting for the exact same thing, and that is the very next major Red Dead Online update. With this next update, we're hoping that it brings quite a lot of content, which also includes potentially even seeing some new characters, maybe even some characters that came from the Red Dead Redemption 2 story. So in this video, I'm going to be going through a couple characters that are the most wanted characters to be within Red Dead Online. Before I get into the video, I am streaming over on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Over there, I am going through the Red Dead Redemption 2 story again, trying to push for 100%, as well as when I'm not doing that, I am still playing online and I'm pushing for $200,000. I'm trying to push for as much gold as possible, and I'm also helping out viewers of the stream as they are trying to grind this game. So if any of that interests you, there is a link in the description down below. Head over to there, drop a follow, and you'll be notified the next time I go live. Getting back into the video, the first thing I should mention is that we are going to be referencing the Red Dead Redemption 2 story, and that will include spoilers. So if you haven't played through the Red Dead Redemption 2 story yet, which I do highly recommend doing, and you don't want the story to be ruined, then it's probably best to click off this video. The first lot of characters that players would like to see are family members of the Greys and Braithwaite, which also includes Miss Braithwaite herself. In chapter 3 of the story, these characters do die and the Braithwaite manor is burnt down. But we have to remember that online is set before story, so in the online world, these characters are still alive. You can already find Sheriff Grey in the sheriff office at Rhodes when you bring in a bounty. He does have a few lines such as congratulating you for bringing in the bounty alive, as well as also bringing him in dead. But that is it. We still have Caliga Hall and Braithwaite Manor taking up a very large portion of Rhodes, and there is no interaction between these characters. You can go inside the Braithwaite Manor, but you will not be able to find any of the main family members. You will find just workers outside wandering around. And it's the same with Caliga Hall, except you can't go inside Caliga Hall. But all the way around Caliga Hall, you will find workers for the Greys. Asking for these characters to be part of online is easier said than done, because what impact are they actually going to have in online? Well, with the Braithwaites, we know that the Braithwaite family is connected to a moonshine business, so that is already an entrance for the Braithwaites. We got the moonshine roll back in December, and if you listen to Maggie Fike in some of the cutscenes, as well as just standing around whilst being in your shack, she will mention the Braithwaites. So the Braithwaites could very well be the introduction of a few more missions in the future, and it would be a great introduction to them. The Greys on the other hand are slightly more complicated to bring in, because we do not see them do too much within the story apart from Sheriff Grey himself. But a lot of players do want to be a sheriff at some point within this game. Maybe Sheriff Grey does have a bigger role to play and he could be the one that shows you the ropes. But either way, ever since online has been released, players have been asking for both of these families to be added to online. The next characters that players would like to see are Clive and also Clay Davis, and they have made a very short appearance when going through the tutorial of online, because Hawley tells you to go and meet them to do your first ever mission. And in this mission, you have to find a horse, you take that horse back to Clive and Clay at the stable to sell it off, but instead they decide to actually give you this horse, and this is where you get your first ever horse. These characters also make an appearance in the story, doing a very similar thing, and can also be found in chapter 3 with the Greys and Braithwaites, because the Greys task you with stealing horses from the Braithwaites. And once you stole those horses, you must sell them to Clive and Clay Davis, which are supposed to give you $5,000. In the end, they give you a much lower price than $5,000, but you still get paid. Players want both of these characters to be added to online so that they could do one of two things. The first thing is you can find wild horses, you can break them, and now officially with the introduction of Clive and Clay, you can sell that horse off for money. You can already break the horses, you just can't sell them. The second option is you have missions which requires you to steal specific horses from specific people, and then you would take those horses back to Clive and Clay Davis again just so you can sell them on. Even though we don't know Clive and Clay as well compared to some other characters on this list, it doesn't stop many players asking for him, so they can do that very specific job of finally selling horses. The next character that players would like to see is Rain's Fall, who you do many missions for within the story within chapter 4. You may also remember his son Eagle Flies. A massive problem with online is the lack of things that you can do for native, as well as also customizing your character to be a Native American. In the summer update, Rockstar did allow players to customize more, which in some areas did cross over, but it's still nowhere near enough. We need so much more. Rain's Fall could have a very interesting story. He did have it within the story mode, but there's so much that happened before that we don't know about. Sometime prior to 1899, Rain's Fall was named chieftain of the Wapiti Indians. He had a wife and 3 sons. His wife and elder sons were killed by the US Army before the events of the game, while his younger son Eagle Flies lived, and we all know the story of Eagle Flies and how it ended for him. But the big selling point is that in the story, the Wapiti reservation is full of life, but when you move over to online, there's just nothing there, and there's actually no reason to go up to this area apart from it has a very good fishing spot. After the year of 1899, it does make sense for this area to be completely abandoned, because Leviticus Cornwall's company did manage to get rights to the land, and that did push off all the natives. They eventually had to relocate to Canada. But going to the point that was made earlier, online is set before story, so this area should be filled with so many different people, so much life around, but unfortunately that is just not the case. If Rain's Fall was added, the missions that we'll get from him probably won't be guns blazing, as he is a pacifist and is fighting peacefully just so they don't have to relocate. But it still doesn't change the conflict that happened between him and also Leviticus, and there could very well be something very good there between them. You do also have Eagle Flies, which is his son, and let's just say he's not a pacifist. Maybe he has some devious stuff that can reward you with some missions that require you to go in guns blazing and killing everyone around you. But either way, not having these characters and going from the story where they did have a very nice area, as well as they did have an impact on Arthur, and then going all the way to online where it just did not exist, just left players having these characters being asked for repeatedly for every single update. The next character that I've seen players ask for is Colm O'Driscoll. Colm plays a massive part within the story. He was once Dutch's best friend, but because Dutch killed Colm's brother, Colm murdered a woman called Annabelle, who was Dutch's lover. Ever since those events, Dutch and Colm have been enemies, and they each have their own gang. You have the Dutch Vandalin, and also you have the O'Driscolls. The chances of any update in Red Dead Online where you can actually be part of a gang with Dutch is incredibly slim, as they have their story and the point of online is for you to have yours. If they did merge, it would just lead to many holes within the story when going back through story mode, as well as even online. And Rockstar are most likely going to avoid this. But with players only knowing the major details of Colm himself as well as the O'Driscoll gang, it does leave a lot of open space where you can actually do some missions with him. This could be a perfect way for you to actually be part of a gang where you have to do heists. And we know that Colm does heists because in the first ever chapter, when you start playing Red Dead Redemption 2, he is planning a heist. The only difference is that Dutch managed to find those plans and do the heist instead of them. There is also an outcry from quite a few players, and this also includes myself, about there being more dishonorable stuff to do within the world. It seems to be extremely easy to be an honorable player, because just by riding your horse, you are given honorable attributes. Just by killing animals and hunting, you are given honorable attributes. The dynamic events that exist within the game are always honorable, and if you just ignore the events, you don't get any dishonorable marks against you. It's just you didn't want to participate. So that's left some players saying that if you bring in the O'Driscoll gang, that could leave an opening for you to be more dishonorable within the world. And likewise, when being within the Red Dead Redemption 2 story or even online where a dynamic event happens and it is a gang ambush, maybe not every time you have to be on the receiving end. Maybe it could be completely switched where you can start setting up ambushes. You can rob stores and you can also rob stagecoaches, all under the name of being an O'Driscoll. And the final character that I have put in this video, with there still being many other characters that players would like to see, but for this video I am going to include Leviticus Cornwall. I have already mentioned him when talking about Rain's Fall, and because he has so many connections with the Red Dead Redemption 2 story, as well as he is already mentioned quite a few times within online, I think it would get a lot of players hyped if he was finally added. So within the story, you do rob him very early on. ODriscoll has plans to rob his train, but Dutch ends up taking those plans and robbing it for himself. That then leads to a Valentine shootout later on, and it also does lead to Leviticus's death. Leviticus is also connected to Rain's Fall because he wants the land of the Wapiti reservation, because he believes that there is oil beneath it. You also have the oil fields in the center of the Heartland, which Leviticus owns, and also we cannot forget the legendary bounty of Etta Doyle, where he sets up a honeypot so that she would rob the Cornwall freight yard, which is found in Saint Denis. He is dotted and mentioned all over Red Dead Redemption 2 and also Red Dead Online. And because he's such a big name within this game, it does make sense that he would be added and you can work for him. We're also talking about it being online, a free roam world where you get to decide your path. Rockstar have said many times that businesses will be added to online, and who better to buy businesses off of other than Leviticus Cornwall. He could also be part of a protection run, such as like a stranger mission. We know by the legendary bounty of Etta Doyle that she likes robbing his trains and stagecoaches. You could be hired by Leviticus Cornwall as a stranger mission where you need to protect these trains and also stagecoaches. Maybe even own a part of the business itself, so it's not just a stranger mission. He gives you a percentage of the company for you to run the stagecoaches or even trains. With Leviticus, there is so much that can be done with him. And going back to the previous character of Rain's Fall, let's just say that Leviticus is not added as someone that you work for or even with, but actually as an enemy, someone that you are against. He can play both sides, and I think that can open up so many different doors for online. And that is why there's been many players asking for him to be added. But anyway guys, those are just a couple of the characters that could be added to Red Dead Online. If you agree or disagree with anything I've said, then let me know in the comment section down below. If you would like to see any more content from me, I am streaming over on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. There is a link to that in the description down below. But anyway guys, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. But for now, I'm going, so see ya.